and then turn it over to Corey Still with traffic engineering.
All right. Thank you, Shauna. As Shauna mentioned, I'm Corey Steele with Traffic Engineering. And today we're here to discuss McKellips Road, College Avenue to Scottsdale Road. Um, First off, why are we doing this? We always try to tie it back to our key council performance measures. In this case, it's pavement quality index, city infrastructure and assets, 20-minute city, and then tree and shade canopy and urban cooling. A little bit of background, McKellips Road, College of Scottsdale. So it's scheduled for pavement quality index improvements. The city, the voters actually passed a bond in 2020 in November for pavement quality index. This is one of the projects that's coming out of that. And it really provided an opportunity to rethink some of the road. And we're doing this because we've heard a lot of resident concerns. Among those are speed, lack of bike infrastructure, lack of parking for some of the houses that face the road, and then also just general safety concerns about the corridor. So to give a little bit of background about McKellips, it's classified as collector road. Typically, we have three types of classifications: arterials, those are really the main road; collectors, those are kind of used to get to and from the neighborhood; and then local roads, those are kind of the ones that you live on. And so this is classified as collector roadway. This is a 5-lane street section. It's a little bit larger than most of our collectors. I think this is the only one that has a 5-lane section currently. The speed limit is posted at 40 miles per hour. And then also we have orbit shuttles running along there with flag stops. So that means anytime someone's walking by, they can raise their hand, flag the shuttle down, hop on board. So staff evaluation, what did we find? We did some speed counts along here. The general speed is, we use an 85th percentile speed for that. Most cars are traveling about 48 miles per hour. So a little bit over the speed limit there. Daily traffic is about 42,000 vehicles per day. This is pretty in line with most collectors in the city. And then crash data. That's another thing we reviewed. In 5 years, we found 12 total crashes. Some of those are speed too fast for conditions, came up 3 times. Some were from turning movements, which can also be contributed to that speed issue. And then there was also one crash that involved a cyclist. Now, another reason to do this project is due to some of the nearby projects that are happening in this area. One is the College Avenue McKellips roundabout, which should be proceeding summer of this year for construction. And then there's also Scottsdale Road bike lanes, which we're anticipating sometime next fiscal year to start. So what exactly is proposed to change? Really, we have 2 cross sections. The only difference between these 2 cross sections is if you look to the right, there's going to be parking in some areas in front of those houses that face the street. Otherwise, it's really going to be more planting to kind of get some, to add some cooling effects to the corridor. We're going to keep vehicle lanes each side. We're going to keep that center turning lane so the turning movements can still be made easily. And we're going to be adding bike lanes with a little bit of a buffer to keep some separation between vehicles and cyclists. So I'm going to walk through the corridor. I'm going to go through this a little fast. But generally speaking, that the green parts, those are going to be where the landscape islands are. And then it just gives you a general feel for how this will look as you go along the corridor, and also as it'll tie into the roundabout. This is a bit of an older sketch with the roundabout. We will be including bike ramps so that cyclists will be able to get on and off from the sidewalk as they go through the roundabouts into the bike lanes as they exit or enter the roundabout. So as we move forward, we're going to keep that landscape island along that south side for a good stretch. And then it'll start to open up as we get to the parking area. That can also be used for buses, curb pullouts, so that some of those houses facing the street have some available on-street parking. And then as we get to the intersection of Scottsdale Road, with this being a PQI, we're trying to do this a little bit faster. We weren't able to narrow the lanes there in part because we want to make sure we can't really do too many changes to the intersection that would make this a much larger project. So for now, we're keeping those 4 lanes, 2 lanes each side as we approach the intersection. And then it will narrow a little bit to the west. We will look at the signal down the road, but for now, there are no plans to make a change at that signal, except for adding the bike lanes to the signal. Now, we have a public comment period open from today. I believe you can do that survey right now, April 28th until May 14th. If you have your phone on you, you can go ahead and use that QR code to scan it and start filling it out now if you have any comments to make. And if there's any additional information, here's my contact information. I'm Corey Steele, Senior Civil Engineer from the Transportation Sustainability Department. Now we're going to open it up to questions. I'm going to jump back a little bit and keep that QR code up for those of you that may want to fill out the survey. But Shauna, why don't we open it up to questions?
Okay, thank you, Corey. So for any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand, which is under the React on your bottom of the screen. It's a heart, and you'll see a hand there. Okay, and the question was asking if Mr. Steele will be present at this evening's in-person meeting. So yes, for those, actually a lot of our city staff, for those who want to come tonight as well, we will be at the North Tempe Multi-Gen Center at 6 p.m. And so you're welcome to come join us there as well.
Yeah, I will be there.
Okay, so comment question. This looks like a fantastic project. My wife and I were walking along there just this weekend thinking it didn't need 2 lanes each way. Is there any chance there might be widening of some of the sidewalks too, or is that outside the scope?
Yeah, that is actually outside the scope. The way the budget was prepared for the PQI project, it includes pavement replacement, and then it includes ADA. We are required to do that on a federal level. The sidewalks currently meet the federal standards. They're a little bit below our current standards, but that wasn't included in the budget for the PQI process. So we don't actually have the budget right now to widen those sidewalks.
And if you're having trouble finding the raise hand, please feel free to come off mute to ask a question. Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Separately for the plantings, will it include trees or just low-level plantings? They'd love to see more trees.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get trees in. There's a lot of underground infrastructure that's gonna make it a little bit tricky. We need to have, I believe it's an 8-foot separation from just to prevent tree roots from going into water lines, sewer lines, anything like that. We're gonna try to get trees in. I think it's gonna be kind of hard, so it will be more kind of native desert landscaping. I can't comment too much on that. I'm an engineer, not a landscape architect, so it's a little bit outside my field. But it's generally going to be more native landscaping, and we'll try to get the trees in if we can.
Okay, no question, but just another comment that they are fully supportive of the project and have some detail level comments they will share with us tonight. Okay, so question, is the timeline to commence this project in line with the roundabout this year?
We're trying to coordinate them as best we can. We do need to get in, we still need to make sure we get engineering plans on this. We're in the process getting an engineer on board right now. With the PQI, it does have an accelerated schedule. So we're hoping to kind of line those up, make it, make less of an impact on the community with those two construction projects. My understanding is the roundabout is going to construction in summer of this year. So sometime after July 1st, it should be in construction. But yeah, we don't have exact timelines in terms of when this will be going in. We're hoping end of this year, early next year.
And with this project, for those of you who got a direct invite to this meeting, we will keep the surrounding area notified on any updates, as well as our website at tempe.gov/McKellips Road. We'll have any kind of timelines as we find them out. Question, any plans for closing the cul-de-sac at the end of McKellips and direct parking to the large Marigold parking lot for the park?
That is not part of this project. If that's something that you would like, you can leave that comment and we can work with the Parks Department to determine if that's something that would work.
Okay, then just a comment that I'm very much opposed. Traffic flow impeded, renters complaining, residents permanent, give drivers a break.
Sean, I think, did you get the comment above that one?
Yeah, it just said, thank you, looking forward to
Okay.
this, and the railroad bike lanes and the roundabout, so.
Okay. Well, thank you both for your input.
Okay, so here's another question. Will the bike lanes help create some separation between the sidewalk and street where there currently is none, especially along the eastern half south side?
So, give me a second. I just want to make sure I fully understand. So you're talking closer to Scottsdale Road, it sounds like. Um, the bike lanes will create a little bit of separation. Typical bike lane width is 6 feet. When we have that buffer, it'll be about 2 feet. So you're going to get a little bit of separation from those vehicles. It's going to be a little bit less as we get closer to the Scottsdale Road intersection because we want to make sure that we still have those 2 lanes. Um, so like I mentioned, we can't really do a full signal reconstruct at this point with that project. So we need to kind of keep those 2 lanes there. So it might be a little bit closer on that side. Further west on the corridor, there will be a little bit more separation.
Okay, and just follow-up comment. Thank you so much for advancing this project. This is such a great opportunity to create a better gateway to Papago and connect the park and Greenbelt.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Again, the direct link was in the chat and in front of you there on the screen, and we will be available in person tonight at 6 p.m. as well. Let's see. So Corey, how possible are mid-block crosswalks?
It is something that we can evaluate with this. We would kind of need to know where you were looking for mid-block crosswalk. So if that's something you're interested in, include that in a comment, and it's something that we can look at and evaluate.
Maybe couple those with chicane options as a comment.
Okay.
And are there any other comments or questions at this point? All right, another question. Keep them coming. We're happy to answer. Is this whole street the jurisdiction of Tempe or is Scottsdale involved?
The whole street is Tempe. Now it's a little bit at the intersection of Scottsdale Road, it's a little bit more confusing. Tempe owns the west and the south. Scottsdale is the north and the east.
And then question about is it a full pavement replacement with the PQI, Corey?
Give me 2 seconds here. Let me just check some of our info. It looks like it is a mill and overlay.
So that is a full pavement replacement. And then, yeah, so for those of you who joined us late, Corey, if you don't mind going back up, since we have time just to do your overview of the project.
Okay. Should I run through it again?
Maybe just from the project scope.
Okay.
And then just for everyone, we will post the recording online as well as the presentation. So you can share it with neighbors or anyone else in the community that's interested.
Okay. So really, talked about some of the character of McKellips. Staff evaluation, what we found is their speeds are 48 miles per hour. That's 8 above the speed limit. Daily traffic is about 42,000 vehicles. That is pretty much in line with what we see along collector roads. Those are typically either 1 lane each direction without a center or 1 lane each direction with that center turn lane. So this is a little bit overbuilt for the traffic that we're seeing. In terms of crash reports, we saw 3 vehicles crashes that were from speed too fast for condition. 5 that were from turning movements, which could also indicate something like speed too fast for condition. And then just 1 involving a cyclist. There's a few other projects that we're kind of looking to tie this one into, and it's why it really was an opportunity when this came up with the PQI. Those were the Scottsdale Road bike lanes and the College Avenue and McKellips roundabout. Now here's the proposed cross sections. There's really this is pretty similar on both sides. This is looking east. So if you're at College going to McKellips or going to Scottsdale Road, this is what you'd see. Really the only difference in the cross section is on the far right side. It's either going to be a planter island or a parking area, depending on where we are in the corridor. And we'll have travel in each direction, turning movement each direction, and then bike lanes with a little bit of a buffer so that we can keep the separation between vehicles and cyclists. Now here's the proposed changes. There is the tie-in here with the roundabout. I will say this, the roundabout was a little bit old that we used for this exhibit. We will have bike ramps so that the bikes can get onto the sidewalk to and from the roundabout when that project is constructed. Now here, the green area is where that planter islands are going to be. Now we are including some areas for the buses to pull in and off for those people that want to board the bus on that south side there. You can see here's a little bit more with that planter island. And as we get to the right, that's where it starts to open up. We open it up, one, so that people can board the bus, and two, so that there can be a little bit of on-street parking in that area. So here we are with more on-street parking for the houses that face the corridor. And then we keep that going. And then as we get closer to the intersection of Scottsdale Road, just due to some of the constraints that I talked about previously, we weren't able to really change this section too much other than adding bike lanes. So hopefully that kind of catches everyone up who maybe was a bit late. And if there's any questions.
So Nancy, yeah, feel free to put in the chat or raise your hand if you had any questions. We did have another one come in. Has there been any consideration to a lane diet strategy to help with safety?
Josh, I could use a little bit more clarification in terms of what you're asking. Is this for this corridor, or were you asking for a little bit more generally with the city?
So this corridor to reduce lanes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, I mean, that really is one of the things we saw. When we looked at the data, there really wasn't, the volume really didn't justify the need for the 2 lanes. And really when that happens, there's just a lot of space for vehicles. So we tend to see those speeding issues. Anytime we have the high speed, there's always some safety concerns. If something goes wrong, those tend to be more serious accidents. So that is one of the reasons why we're looking to, make this road fit a little better for the community. It does have that safety benefit as well.
So maybe to clarify, Corey, between this area, you will take out over, right? You will take out a lane to fit the parking and the landscape.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nancy followed up to just thank you so much for going over it again. Looks like a great project. And then a question asking if you could go over where parking is allowed again.
Yeah. So we're going to start a little bit west of McKellips. This is really where those houses are facing the road. So, it'll be really right there west of McKellips. And then as we go, we'll have to look into, based on city code, as far as the driveways, we could have a little bit east of Cavalier. There could be some on-street parking for those apartment complexes. But we really, it might be a space or two. But other than that, we really have to kind of start to narrow it just in order to get the tapers, introduce the other lanes as we approach the intersection.
So question, a lot of large delivery trucks and moving trucks will park in the center lane with flashers on to deliver to the homes, which is hazardous. Will the parking spaces be large enough for delivery vehicles?
Yeah. The plan is for those parking spaces to be, I believe, 8.5 feet wide, which is our typical parking space requirement. If we need to, we can evaluate maybe making those a little bit wider if that's going to be an issue. So if that's a concern, please, leave those in the comments so that we don't lose track of something like that. Leave it in the survey, the public comment survey, so that we make sure that things like that are considered.
And we'll also be capturing your comments from today's meeting and including those as well.
Yeah, no, that's good consideration, though. I appreciate that comment.
Okay, any other questions? Speed limit reduction was a question, Corey?
Yeah, so traffic engineering staff's always evaluating speed limit reductions. This is one under consideration for the speed limit reduction. 40 miles an hour is our fastest collector in the city. Typically, we see 30 to 35 for those roads. So we're evaluating whether that is something to bring forward to council.
Okay, any follow-up to say, please do. And then a question about how this will fit in with the new apartment complex that is planned for Scottsdale Road and McKellips.
Yeah, so that apartment complex it's an interesting one. It's gonna be at about an 8-year build out. So we don't really wanna think long-term for something that might take even longer if financing, something like that falls out. So really we took more consideration for what the existing apartment complex was. Um, I can tell you, I think, I know there's gonna be multiple driveways. We're trying to, create an environment where really that full section, right there, Cavalier, I think that's where a planned driveway is, for that new apartment complex. So we're really trying to introduce, the lane. We're trying to keep the lanes up until there just so that, any traffic that might happen from that apartment complex, um, really isn't affecting too much through movements along McKellips.
All right, any others? Okay, again, we thank you all for joining us. And anyone thinks of a question between now and later, you can always reach out. Corey's contact information is on there, maybe at the next slide. And then, or come tonight and ask him in person. And there's a second support for speed limit review. So again, thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to, getting your comments.